Mm.
Okay, members, good morning and welcome. Bore da croeso cynnes. We've got scrutiny this morning for economy, residents, communities and governance. But before we start, can I just wish you all a very happy St. David's Day. Dydd Gwyl Dewi Hapus to you all. We've got apologies for absence as item 1 on our agenda. We've received apologies from Councillor Les Skilton and Councillor Jonathan Wilkinson. Are there any more apologies? Okay, we'll move on to item 2 to receive disclosures of interest, and item 3, declaration of party whips. Item 4 on your agenda then, colleagues, is the digital strategy 2021 to 2025. We're joined by the Cabinet Portfolio Holder, Councillor Graham Breeze, who's going to introduce this, and then we'll go over to our colleague Diane Reynolds. Graham, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me to introduce this item, which is a very important update being presented to you this morning because it contains so much of real importance for the future running of this authority and the safety and well-being of our residents. It's also an appropriate time for me to thank Diane Reynolds and the digital team for the amazing efforts they have made responding to the needs of our residents during the pandemic, yet still managing to progress the digital transformation programme. And I also think it's fair to say that the digital team's work during this time has been an example to other authorities across Wales, and I'm proud to say that and congratulate Diane and her team for that. It's also important to point out that while digitisation of the authority remains key, we're not forgetting those who are less comfortable online. It's vitally important that channels are kept open for residents to be able to speak to someone at Powys when they feel the need. And I think that's something we really need to concentrate on. I think you'll find this a very interesting presentation. So I'll hand over to Diane now, our Head of Digital Services, to present it to you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Diane.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much. I've got a presentation and I've joined by 2 colleagues, Kelly Watts, head of our customer services team, and Paul Skippen, who's been project managing our education technology transformation. So I'll bring them in at the appropriate time. So I'll just share my presentation now. Hopefully you can all see that.
Yes, that's great, Dan. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, so in December 2019, we launched our digital strategy, and that came to scrutiny at the just before and included some of your comments made. So we've been busy implementing the strategy. Obviously, we didn't have that long before COVID kind of took over some of our progress, but we've still been, as Councillor Graham said, still been managing to progress. So we've set out really around customer-centred digital solutions is our main aim, and that's where we've really made the most progress, and obviously lots of that in relation to lots of different elements in terms of responding to COVID and people getting access to information and grants, etc. We always try to be digital first in everything we look at, but not totally exclusive. We don't try and leave any other means out. Making sure we're safe and secure, and also working with our partners has been a key theme. So we've got 5 main themes, and I'm just going to give you an update on those today, really, just to show you where we're at before you get the official end of year reporting. This just gives you a bit more context and a bit more insight rather than just a figure on a page. I thought it'd be really good for you to see what we've been developing behind the scenes. So our first measure really is customer-centered digital solutions. And what we've been doing here is looking at really trying to transform technology-enabled care, which has really been by our adult services teams. And obviously we've all seen lots of information and demos on technology-enabled care and making sure residents stay safe in their own homes. So that target has been reached in 2020. And also the number of automated processes. We're on track to deliver our 93 processes by 2021 and have made significant progress in getting towards that. Also, the number of residents with a My Powers account, which shows that transformation of people setting up a My Powers account and transacting with us through that account, has significantly increased from 28,000 to 41,000, where we're at currently. So I'm now going to hand over to Kelly Watts, who's just going to take you through a bit more in depth on what we've actually achieved through customer-centered digital solutions.
Hi, everybody. Nice to be here today. I hope you can all hear me okay. I had a few problems logging on, but I think it's all working fine. Okay, so obviously we started our new financial year in March with a plan on what we were going to deliver around the customer-centered work streams. Obviously, very early on in March, that sort of plan went out the window, and we had to really focus on the council's COVID-19 responses. So the team who are working on the customer-centered digital solutions, the developers, myself, our service improvement team, and ICT colleagues really took the lead in a number of these initiatives that we were asked to deliver for Welsh Government and for the council as a whole. So I've made a list of some of the bigger items that we focused on. So track, trace and protect. So this was the interim period before anything had been put in from Welsh Government, but local authorities still had to deliver the track, trace and protect programme. So we used our CRM system, our web platform, the GOS ICM platform, to build that track, trace and protect element for the council. We were also able to supply that for 3 other local authorities as well. So they were really impressed with what we'd done and obviously wanted to use our system to support themselves. We also started back in March last year, welfare calls to vulnerable customers. So this was around understanding the needs of our residents, so whether they needed help with any pharmacy supplies, any food supplies, any befriending. So we built the system to be able to alert PAVO if they needed any of that support. So by filling in the form on our web ICM platform, that then emailed requests for service to PAVO. Likewise to our assist team for support with daily living or any safeguarding concerns that we'd picked up during the call. And indeed a councillor callback. So I know you've all been involved in that. So if a resident is requesting a callback from their local councillor, Wyn is receiving those requests and obviously making contact with yourselves. We delivered during March and August 23,000 calls to our residents. So that was round 1. We now started round 2 at the end of January and have again made 5,000 successful calls to our residents. We also supported in the Welsh Government food parcels. So as part of those calls, we were inquiring whether the resident had had their food parcel. If not, how we could support them to make sure they had food, and obviously working closely with Welsh Government, making sure that that data was available around who needed a food parcel. Again, using that system to make sure that it was all captured in one place and easy to report on. We also supported the library with the order and collect service. So at the moment, there's been over 3,700 requests made online or via the telephony for collection of a library book. We've got really high satisfaction from our residents there, 4.8 out of 5. And also a few comments. I'm very grateful for this online service, which has worked well for me. And another one, just simply quick and easy to use. So really positive feedback from our residents there. We also built within the system as well a lateral flow testing. So some of our social care staff, as part of their role, have to undertake COVID testing on a regular basis. So we were able to build a simple, quick and easy way for our staff to be able to log into the platform, fill in their details, and obviously whether their test had been positive or negative, and then provide a script back to them to say what they then needed to do based on that outcome. Again, because it's all going into the one system, the reporting's very simple to do, and we're able to report that internally for management purposes, but also to Welsh Government. Thanks, Di. I'm ready to move on. Okay, so after all the COVID work, and that really was just sort of an element of what we've done. We've also obviously the business grants are all online on the website. So we then focused on what we were supposed to be doing, which was around the end-to-end process flows. So we've undertaken a number of processes within highways around the reported tasks. So as you can see there, report a problem with hedges, trees or verges, report a dead animal, report a pothole, verge. So what we're trying to do here is provide a simple form for our customers that starts at the beginning and goes right to the end, right to that request being undertaken. As you can see there, we've also delivered council tax and business rates. So our customers are now able to have an account summary and set up and amend direct debits. We've also undertaken a number of waste tasks around household waste, the trade waste, and of course the garden waste again this year. Fly tipping, so we've provided an interactive map there where you're able to log the fly tip that you've spotted, but you're also able to receive updates to find out whether that has been collected, or you're able to see fly tips within your area. And we've also delivered for education the Fly and Start applications. I think we can move on, Di. Okay, just to say, one of the areas that we're moving sort of phase 2 with the council tax and business rates is looking at paperless billing. So all being well, we're hoping that our customers will be able to sign up via their My account to receive a council tax bill via their My account rather than through the door on paper. So that's a real improvement, and obviously a cost saving in paper there and postage. So we're hoping to have that in place ready for this new round of council tax bills, but still quite a bit of work to do on that, and obviously communication as well. So I just wanted to go through some of the benefits we've achieved as part of this process redesign. So for the processes that we've redesigned, you can now obviously do that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We've removed a lot of manual intervention. So what I mean around that is maybe a front end form being completed and then that printed off, or that information taken from that front end system and retyped into a back end system. So we're removing all of that manual intervention. We are literally going from the customer to the delivery of the product or the service at the end. If you have a My Powis account, you're able to see all your interactions with the council and also receive updates of what's happening with that request as well, which stops those calls coming back in to say, can you tell me what is happening with, you know, whatever you've got logged. We're also able to check eligibility criteria as well. So for example, in the application for assisted collection, if you actually have a blue badge number, we can check that through the process, and that will automatically award you that an assisted collection. So there's no need for somebody to check in the back office that you've actually have got a blue badge. It's done automatically. So we're thinking of things like that as we're building these processes. Data sent to the right area. So, you know, again, no manual intervention thinking, oh, this is Penybond Depot that this needs to go to, or this is Welshpool Depot. Based on the postcode, off it goes to the right depot for that work to be done. And obviously we're seeing a reduced call volume coming through into customer services, which obviously is really good. So we're able to pick up calls quicker, but we're also able to spend time then with those residents who aren't able to do things digitally, and obviously support those requests. I think that's it for that. Oh, no, we're still on this one, aren't we? Sorry, got carried away with the benefits. Okay, so satisfaction, we've got 89% satisfaction. So we ask the customer at the end of the process, how do you rate the process? So really good satisfaction there. A couple of customer quotes on this slide as well. And I think you can see the slide off to the right there around how much people are doing for themselves. So if the blue line is those that are going online and actually doing the process via the website, the orange bit, what we call assisted service, is those calls that are coming in via our contact centre. So you can see there a lot of people are finding the website really simple to use and obviously using it. So that's a real positive benefit. Thanks, Di. I'm ready. Okay, so as Diane mentioned there, we're not just thinking of those that can use digital solutions. We're also thinking around accessibility in general. So we've also undertaken an accessibility survey for our deaf and hard of hearing. So that ran back in October. You can see some of the responses that we received there. And what this is helping towards is it's informing the procurement of our new telephony platform. So we're currently out to tender for telephony, but wider than that, thinking around the omni-channel approach. So thinking about how we can communicate across multiple channels to make that communication so much easier. But joining the dots of that communication as well. So if you're sending an email, we're able to know that you've sent an email. If you're sending a text, we're able to know that you've sent a text. If you then telephone us by telephony. So understanding that customer journey into the council. So things like web chat, chatbots, text messages. So considering all of those options as part of our tender process for our new omni-channel system. Thanks, Di. Di, I'm ready to move on. Oh, thanks. Also, as well as the survey, we've had to ensure that our website meets the website accessibility regulations. So we've been undertaking that over the last 6 months, and we do have a tool that we can use, which tells us how we are performing, and you can see the performance off to the right of the screen there. So our quality is 99% and our accessibility is 92%. So again, heading in the right direction there as well about accessibility on the website. I think that's it from me.
Lovely, thanks Kelly, thanks very much. So we have 4 more elements to look at. I don't know whether councillors would like to stop there to ask any questions on customer centred, or whether you just want us to present all 5.
Nobody has indicated as yet. So just to remind colleagues that on Zoom, on the bottom bar, you have a raise hand facility that you can click if you'd like to speak. I'll see that then and be able to call you in. As nobody's indicated yet, Diane, we'll move on and take questions at the end.
Matthew, sorry, I have raised my hand and it's up on my picture on the screen, but I don't know why you're not seeing it.
It's only just illuminated on mine, Jackie. So
right.
That'll be why.
Could I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, go for it, please.
Otherwise, if we go too far on, these might be lost a little bit. There's a couple of questions really on the first screen where you can get in and report things like fly tipping, burst water mains, and things like that. In the recent flood a couple of weeks ago, I tried to look on the website to see where I could get in touch with somebody urgently about flooding, but this wasn't a burst water main or a flood in somebody's home. This was the major weather flood. There isn't anywhere, as far as I could see, where you could make some kind of call or put something somewhere to say that there was terrible flooding on the road and the road needs to be closed. So we'd be talking about this afternoon with the cabinet member, so I'll have that conversation again. But I just wanted to highlight that as a member of the public, you wouldn't know to be able to do anything like that if you go onto the website. So that's the first thing I just wanted to flag up. And the other thing I wanted to flag up was where you were doing really well and you've got an 89% satisfaction, excellent, on people being able to report online and then get something done about it. Now, on the missed collections, it's the one thing that I have followed up on more than one occasion where people have gone online and reported missed collections, but there's nothing to tell them why those collections have been missed. So if it's the lorry's broken down or whatever, and then it will be picked up. And they've got in touch with me, and then I've had to get in touch with the Brecon Depot to find out what's happened. So I don't know whether that's part of the figures that you're collecting, because I'm sure I'm not the only councillor that gets emails about this on a fairly regular basis, and it's usually because there's been a lorry breakdown. So I wondered if I could just get a bit of feedback on just those 2 issues.
Okay. obviously, I'm not too sure on the flood and how that works. I'd probably have to have a conversation outside of this group to pick up on that. Regarding the missed collections, as part of one of our redesigns, we have looked at a way in which staff members at the depot are able to access the website and put in information around why there is a missed collection. So that facility is there to use. And what that would do then would be obviously come up within the website to say these postcodes or this area, I don't know, maybe has a lorry delayed or a lorry broken down or something. So that facility is there. What I'll do is follow that up following this meeting and just check is that being utilised or not, because it is available to use.
Thank you.
Okay, you probably want to just note that as an action to get assurance for Councillor Charlton Wynne, if possible. Jackie, did you have anything else you wanted to raise?
I'd like to say more on the accessibility stuff, if I may.
Well, yes, it's
Yeah.
what we talked about in the presentation. So now's the point to raise that. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you did the survey, I know I did the survey myself. So, some of the answers you got in the survey are my answers. But I do think messaging is really important. I can't tell you how important text messages are to somebody who is deaf or hard of hearing. So if we can bottom that one out, that would be fantastic. I really do think that would be a real big step forward, because it is incredibly frustrating if you have to get somebody else to make your phone call for you. Video calls again, yes, I found videos and the fact that I can wear a headset and enhance the hearing, but also see somebody in front of you when you're talking is incredibly important for somebody who has a hearing loss. So again, I really welcome that, and the subtitles, and really to say, I think you've moved forward incredibly well. So I mean, I know Scrutiny, and I'm always saying this, that Scrutiny isn't just about complaining and moaning or saying something's missing. It's also to congratulate you on what you did. So I want to congratulate you as somebody who is deaf and does take advantage of all these things that you're putting in place. They have made a massive difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any more hands. So let's move on to the next section of the presentation. Diane.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Jackie. That's very nice to hear. Okay, so the digital workforce is one element where we haven't really progressed as quickly as we hoped. Obviously, the workforce teams have been really busy supporting services in their response to COVID. So we have made some effort in terms of staff training. We've done some pilot training, and we've just launched 200 online training courses. It's like a 3-day course for some staff members, just to progress that forward. We've also conducted a research paper this is myself investigating the barriers for the digital barriers for older people getting access. So we did some research questions and a lot of investigation in terms of what are the barriers for older people getting access to digital. Obviously, with COVID and its many negatives, there's been many positives in terms of that jump in technology use from the older generations has been massive, just because to keep in touch with their families. But also I wanted to understand what is it that's actually stopping our people sustaining the use of digital technology, and what barriers still exist for those that are still excluded. It's not for everybody, I realise that, but I think we could do more. So we were just doing a lot of research to inform the next stage of our implementation. So that's it on digital workforce. I don't know if there was any questions.
I can't see any hands on the workforce section, Diane, but can I just ask what your modelling is for the future of the workforce of the council based on the digital strategy, and how you see the overall workforce of the council having to change as the strategy develops?
Yeah, so what we're first of all trying to design is a framework which actually sets what are all the skills and tools that we all need in our day-to-day work at a very basic level. What is the base set we need? And then as we go through different roles and different jobs, what are the kind of tools we need to do those different elements of work? So we're setting 3 tiers of bronze, silver and gold, and then trying to make sure that our leaders obviously are at gold and can lead the way in terms of digital transformation and the digital tools we use. But actually that's not for everybody. Some people don't need to have gold standard in the use of digital tools, and they might be absolutely capable of doing everything they need to do within their work at a bronze level. So we're setting out what that framework is, what that looks like as our first stage. And the person that's going to be working out, I believe, has just been recruited by the workforce team. So we'll be starting that framework, although we've sketched out a few ideas as a digital delivery board. And then when we understand what that framework looks like, then we can then go and actually make sure we've got all of that training available for everybody. And it might be quick online videos that you can do yourself, or it might be more formal training. But we're also going to run some workshops and some investigation with our staff, with our members, and with our customers to understand what kind of training, what elements people are really missing and want to get on with as quick as possible. So expect some surveys out very soon in that area as well.
So that's really helpful. That says to me that you're very much developing and no one left behind strategy, really, and that there's something aimed, I guess, at all roles within the council. But more generally, I mean, how do you see the shape in the council workforce for future years? Will the council, be a smaller employer? Will we, retain people but have to change the way that roles are offered? As clearly there won't be as many front-facing roles. I'm just trying to get a flavour for how the workforce and the shape might look in future years.
Yeah, and I think obviously with the new ways of working and the investigation under that, I can't preempt what's going to come out of that investigation. My role really is to make sure that we have the tools available to support the organisation in whatever shape and form that takes, and agile working and being able to work from home and accessing our systems and our processes and everything that we need to do as agile as possible is obviously what I'm trying to support, and also supporting our customers to be able to use the tools they want or to access the information they need from us and to interact with us as broad a range as possible, not just digital, but it might be by telephony, by text messaging, as we talked. So I think we're trying to make sure that our workforce are there that can make that move with us and support their customers as well. So I think it's not just about our workforce being capable, but actually them having the skills to support all of our customers as well, to make that transformation as more and more of the digital world impinges on our life. And at the moment it's so digital, isn't it, with us all staying at home. So yeah, having the right support is really important.
No, thanks, Diane. That's incredibly detailed and appreciated. Thank you. I've got a couple of hands up then. So Kelvin Curry, I'll bring you in first.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks to both the presenter. It's really a question to Diane, I think. It's in relation to, you mentioned a short while ago in your presentation about the barriers to using the technology in connection with the older generation. And that was in relation to training. But part of the problem is the technology from the point of view of the broadband or the copper wires or whatever that gets the technology to the residents of Powys. Now, you may be going to cover this later on in your presentation, but I've been doing quite a lot of work with Rhys Simmons. I know other councillors probably have been working with him as well. Will you be covering that in the presentation, or is that something that will be covered in a later date?
Yeah, we will be covering that. That's digital places, and we're definitely going to cover that off for you. But I can say the research paper I did was actually on the wider barriers of accessing digital. And quite happy to share some of the main findings really were when someone is introduced to digital technology, it makes a real difference having up-to-date technology for that person to actually use. So a lot of the time, the older generation are kind of handed cast off from the family, and that doesn't mean anything horrible. It's just like, oh, have my old phone, mum, or have my old iPad. And actually, that can be quite bad for the user, because they need to use the stuff that's up to date and up to speed. Otherwise, they find it incredibly frustrating and don't sustain the use of those tools. So we did learn some really good things out of that research paper. And one of them, as you quite rightly said, was actually just getting connected. So which still was a significant barrier.
Because there are still significant numbers of people in Paris who, don't just have poor, speeds or access to the internet. They don't have any access at all. So, we really need to draw all those people in. And I know the work that research is doing is certainly helping that. But maybe we'll come on to that in a little while. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Kelvin. Gareth Jones, your hand was up. It's now disappeared off my screen, but if you do want to speak.
Chair, Councillor Curry then answered the questions relating to broadband. I asked the questions relating to broadband, so I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Okay, Gareth, thanks very much for that. Okay, Diane, we can move on then at this stage.
Thank you. Okay, so information excellence. This is really about providing the information to our services and our residents on the current information, trying to make decisions through actually analysing that information and giving informed decisions. So all managers having access to online management information was achieved. And we've also increased the number of Powys Wellbeing Information Bank data sets from 36 dashboards to 72. That's already been achieved, so which has given lots of information out in terms of our customers. And we're also working on a project to share data with our partners. So we're working on a trial project piece with 2 other local authorities at the moment. So our approach, obviously you all know that we break down our data into 13 localities, and we've pulled lots of data together to help us inform our services in terms of COVID. We've also done a joint piece with NWIS, and I'll show you that on the next screen, which is actually looking at a proof of concept of how we can share data. So we actually took some live data and actually brought that in for the council to be able to make decisions on a day-to-day basis, which brought the data in much quicker than waiting for traditional formats. And we've also automated our care home reporting, taking data from our care homes and bringing that into the local authority so we can support care homes effectively and much quicker in response than we would have done traditionally. We've also, in the background, looked at the improvements of social care. So you can see in the top right, a traditional reporting scorecard, but now those scorecards are all brought together and have much more interactive data. And they're just a few quotes there from our heads of service. So I haven't gone too much into information excellence, but it's moving quite a bit, and they're still doing lots more work to actually get that integrated data much better. So at the moment, we've got quicker access to individual data sets. We are doing some integration, but lots more to do. Is there any questions on information excellence?
I don't have any hands up at this stage, Diane, but just to say, really, I've seen the dashboards through social care through the time that I was on the improvement board as an opposition leader. And I have to say that the speed that they were developed and the quality of them was a really good example of how these digital platforms can add value to our work as a council. So it's good to see you holding them up really for others to see them too. But please press on. There's no one else waiting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so digital infrastructure and systems. So I look after the ICT team, and they've been obviously working exceptionally hard, and real credit to that team in actually supporting the whole organisation to be able to go and work from home this time last year, and that all happened really seamlessly. Obviously a few little bits and pieces that we had to improve on, but actually the work they done to ensure the council was up to date and able to support a more agile workforce was a real credit. So the number of ICT processes to 25%. Actually, we've managed to automate a lot of our ICT processes in the background. Probably no one really sees that at the front end, but actually that's given us the capability to release our staff to help with automation across the council, which I know you're more interested in, and we will be coming back with an automation framework really for you to comment on for the future. Also, 100% of the schools will have the digital infrastructure in place, which is education technology piece, which has now been achieved. All schools are now connected and have the latest up-to-date infrastructure in terms of connectivity and all the wiring and all the latest Wi-Fi infrastructure in schools, ready for those learners to return and be a much more digital environment for schools and teachers and learners. So some of the elements that we've been working on is unified communications. Obviously, Kelly touched on that. We've been listening to our customers in what they wanted. We've been listening to all of our service areas in terms of the challenges they face in communicating and connected communication. And we've set a vision and we've put that out to tender at the moment. That closes mid-March. We're getting a huge volume of increase of interest, and we're hoping to find a really good integrated solution which helps us integrate any way the people want to connect with us, but actually that we can look at those in a unified way and connect people in. It might be a chat bot, it might be a text message, it might be through the GOS platform, it might be telephony, but actually people can jump between those communication channels and we can actually see that whole journey and help people connect together. We've also obviously introduced Microsoft Teams, and 90% of our staff now have accounts and are using Microsoft Teams. We also introduced the desk booking facility to ensure our workforce that we're going into the offices where they need to are actually working safely, and we're only booking to the maximum available to go in that day. I've talked about the school hub program and that we're being 100% successful there for this year's targets. And also as part of the hub program, we've also taken delivery of lots of laptops for teachers and learners, and we managed to actually get them in on a Thursday. I can't remember the exact figure, but it was thousands, and we actually built those over a weekend. The team came in, built them over a weekend and had them out delivered early the next week. So we're really pleased with the effort that we put in there to try and get people connected as quickly as possible. As soon as that delivery came from the hub program, they were out of our configured and out of our door as quickly as possible. And then we've got we've started introducing chatbots in some of our end user service just to try out in our own systems and make sure that they're built robustly before we try in other aspects, and they've been really successful. This just gives you a picture of the digital infrastructure that we're putting in terms of the omni-channel, and it's just giving you really a good insight. The GOS platform, really, we've brought that in as the kind of stable body underneath the whole of the customer experience that helps us make those connections. And then the unified communications is out to tender now. And then stage 3 will be connecting it all together through the omni-channel approach, which is really going to be our journey over the next couple of years. Obviously, in the back office, I know Kelly mentioned that we've been supporting as well, but we've helped support in ICT through mass vaccination telephony, all the IT systems for the temporary mortuary facility, in the mass vaccination centres as well, we've put in all the infrastructure for those when they're in our buildings. We've also helped the digitally excluded learners, which I've talked about, getting laptops out, but also reconfiguring some older laptops, trying to get them out for anybody that's excluded and at home. We've also set up our foster carers with Office 365 account as a real fast track return to keep them connected. And we've been sending out cyber security bulletins, trying to keep our staff up to date with the latest cyber security threats, which unfortunately have seen a massive increase during this time as well. That's it on our ICT infrastructure and systems, if there's any questions.
No one's got a hand up here, but maybe you could just give us some more detail about how we can work in partnership with other organisations to improve our services on digital platforms, because there's obviously complexity around how we should share data, and data is clearly, you know, a valuable public commodity. But could you just give us, you know, just some flavour about, you know, what you'll do to overcome some of those challenges, what opportunity there is, and how you'll manage risk?
Yeah, so if I take the mass vaccinations as an example, obviously as a team we support not only the council but also the health board in terms of the ICT infrastructure, and we could see that for the mass vaccination support they were missing a huge number of telephone calls coming in about the mass vaccinations every day. So we suggested a way that we could support the health board much more effectively by joining that telephony into the council systems. We actually looked at our systems and worked out that we did have enough capacity to support them. So they went from around many thousands of missed calls a day to down to no missed calls or just a few every day where people have to call back in. We did hear of stories of people actually sitting on the phone hour after hour just pressing redial trying to get contact into that mass vaccination centre, but they get all the telephone contacts they need now, and also when they need to kind of ring out and change bookings. So we've used some of the team used our telephony systems to actually support them, and it can actually give messaging up front to say don't ring if you for these reasons, or you can find this information online, but you know, support them in a much better way. And the health board team have actually been so impressed with the telephony that we've been able to support them with, and that's a real showcase of joint working, where through a memorandum of understanding we can actually use our systems to the benefit of our public rather than just the benefit of one service area. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, no, it's a really good example, Diane. Thank you for that. Okay, let's move on. I can't see any hands.
Okay, so digital places is the one you were asking me about earlier. Obviously, this is where we talk about connectivity. We also talk about making our town smart, a joint health and care digital academy. We also talk about supporting our communities to gain digital skills, develop ways to encourage digitally encourage tourism, and also collaborating with our businesses. This is really one area where we've still tried to push ahead because we know connectivity is so important. We have actually provided communities extra advice regarding community broadband, and I know many of you know Reese and the work he's been doing, and we've actually been fielding all queries through to Reese, and Reese has actually managed to connect people where they didn't know they already had access to connectivity. So there's been many of those where we've pointed them in the right direction. We've also, through the libraries, provided going to be providing access to equipment that people can borrow to actually get digital connectivity, and we're also helping through the Mid Wales Growth Deal. We'll be looking at that digital connectivity as part of that, but obviously that's still in its early phases. But I think the one you're probably all interested is the fibre broadband uptake, and also the supporting digital communities to get connected. So we're at the moment on the broadband take up in the fibre to cabinet that's already there. We've only got people have only taken up 53% of what is available, or they had done when we first started the programme, but that's now managed to increase to nearly 60%, but our target is 75% by 2024. So in terms of digital places, we set out at this year's ambition to work with 3 communities, but as you can see from the slide, I think we're well over the 3, and Reese has been very busy. I've given you a flavour there of actually it's across communities that we're working in many different areas. So lots of them are still in the scoping phase. Some are a bit further ahead, which are the top 3. But Reese has been very, very proactive in working with these communities, getting people connected. And I would say one of the things that we, as councillors, we can all help is actually when we're working with the community, try and encourage people to come forward as soon as possible, because the more people we get interested at the beginning, the stronger that interest we can get from the partners we're working with to actually get people connected. So I think you can see there that there's lots of areas where we are working, and we're hoping, we've put in a bid for more monies, and we're hoping to strengthen this area and go even quicker. We also had an announcement, which I hope you've all seen, about the shared rural network, and the EE were one of the first of the big 4 to actually say which masts they were upgrading. And I know it doesn't sound that exciting about upgrading a mast from 3G to 4G, but actually it broadens the coverage of that mast for mobile connectivity, and that's so important in our rural communities. So you can actually get broadband access then, and you can also get more coverage over a wider area. So these are the ones that EE plan to update in 2021, which again is across Powys. We've got next generation access broadband also going into communities around Clernerville and also down in Ustragon-Lys. Disappointingly, the emergency services network, which was really should have been kicking off now really, and putting in masts where we haven't got many masts, which would improve the emergency services network's coverage for mobile telephony, has actually been delayed, and it's a national delay, nothing due to us locally, but we are still working in the background with our emergency services network team in Wales to actually make sure that we're up the front when that does start rolling out, that Powys will hopefully be one of the first areas to get connected through that new masts, etc. We have got a working group behind the scenes in this one as well, working with property and planners and national park all across the piece, trying to make sure that we support connectivity as much as we can behind the scenes in their service areas. I think I'll stop there on digital places, because I'm going to bring Paul in to do a presentation on LoRaWAN, which is the next exciting area that we're looking to implement. But I know you've all got lots of questions on connectivity, so if I pause there.
Okay, no members wishing to speak
No?
at this stage, Diane.
Okay.
So please push on.
Okay, Paul, would you like to come in and?
Sorry, I was a bit later with my hand.
Sorry.
No problem. Go for it.
Yeah, it's about the emergency services network. I'm a member of the Mid and West Wales Fire and Rescue Authority, and I think all the authorities that are involved in this are equally disappointed. But I'm just wondering whether members, as a council, as well as officers, can actually try and bring some pressure to bear on this, because this is a life and death situation. Places like the Ellen Valley are completely black spots, not just digitally from the point of view of the internet, but from the point of view of mobile phone coverage as well. And in this day and age, to have vast areas like that where you can't communicate just seems totally wrong. So I'm just wondering, as a committee, as an authority, whether we actually can put some pressure to bear on moving this along a bit, because it just seems absolutely ridiculous that this is this current situation.
Okay, important point, I think, Kelvin. Perhaps if we can circulate some information to members about the network after this meeting, we'll have a greater understanding of it, and we can follow that up. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I'd be grateful if we can investigate, what powers we do have to put a little bit more pressure on the powers that be. Thank you.
Sure thing. We'll log that as an action, please, Wyn. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring in Paul now. And interestingly, the LoRaWAN technology that we're going to be talking to you about next does actually bring some connectivity to many rural areas. It's not really designed for voice or broadband access, but BT are keen to work with us to try and see what we can do innovatively in many of our rural areas to support this. So I'll bring in Paul now, if you're able to talk through these slides, Paul.
Yes, thanks, Diane. Good morning, all. My name's Paul Skip, and I'm an ICT project manager at Powys County Council, and I'm working on the early stages of LoRaWAN implementation and testing. So basically, LoRaWAN stands for Long Range Wide Area Network. It's a proprietary low power wide area network, and it's not 5G, it's not 4G. It's basically a long range network that is available if you have the gateways and sensors to deploy anytime. So to break it down, LoRaWAN consists of gateways, and on the left hand side of the slide at the top, there's an illustration of a gateway, and they have radiuses of around 5 to 10 miles. Having spoken to quite a few people, that 10 miles is ambitious because of the geographical nature of Powys. They tend to be line of sight. So obviously with the hills, the mountains, you don't always get that, and buildings, you don't always get that 5 to 10 miles. So you're talking 3 to 4 miles as a more accurate sort of guide. So, and there's also a variety of sensors that send back data to the gateways and onto dashboards for analysis. And I'll come to describe what those sensors are in the next slide. So LoRaWAN enables devices or sensors to be deployed in areas previously not possible due to some or all of the following constraints. So in places where you had no connectivity to networks, if you're out in the field, you couldn't plug into a network there. No power. So you generally require power to create a network. Unsustainable running costs. For example, if you're using 4G, 5G, there's a cost to pay to telecoms providers. And complexity, size, and cost of overall deployment. LoRaWAN is a relatively simple concept. If you could move on to the next slide for me, Diane. Thank you. So the application of the technology is around the gateways and sensors. And what I've done here is show a number of the different sensor options on the left hand side. There's something known as a smart house environment, and this is where sensors and gateways feeding back into dashboards can actually help with the management of the home. It can help maintain people's independence. So for example, water leak sensors, the top left hand corner is a water leak sensor that will actually detect if a sink or bath was to overflow. As long as that was located in an appropriate position, it would actually detect that had happened, that there'd been an overflow, and it could alarm the individual in the house, but it could also send it back to a central dashboard where an alarm could be generated to notify, for example, a warden. In the same way, a smoke sensor whereas the majority of smoke sensors in houses at the moment will basically sound an alarm. This, in combination with LoRaWAN, can be used to send an alert back to a central point. So it sort of increases the coverage of the smoke alarm beyond the house. Temperature and humidity sensors, an example of their use, I've actually known someone who's used it in a greenhouse, but in terms of in the house, you could tell whether, let's say there's a person with particular needs, you could be having regular updates from a temperature sensor telling you whether they've got their heating on in the winter, and it could give you a guide as to whether they're looking after themselves. They're also able to detect, these sensors are able to detect movement. So if you have someone living in a house and you'd like to know that they've got up in the morning, there are seat or bed occupancy sensors. That would also tell you whether they'd sat down in the seat, how long they'd been in the seat. For example, if someone had been sat in a seat for 24 hours, it may raise concern, and you'd want someone to go around and check that they were okay. And these sensors enable that possibility. There's also door and window sensors. An example I've seen is where it may be an elderly relative is at home, and you set up a sensor and a dashboard to record whether that door opens after 10 o'clock at night. So it may be the case that there aren't any circumstances you can think of where the door may be opened after 10, and if it was, you'd want to know, and you want to be alerted and maybe attend to check how that relative is. Sensors will also run to appliances. They'll work as water flow sensors, so you can tell when a tap is turned on, turned off. Again, this can tell you whether someone who is vulnerable, potentially, is keeping themselves hydrated. Fridges, the temperature sensors within fridges. This also obviously has a sort of commercial use, where you don't actually need to go to the fridge or the freezer to actually check the temperature. You could be anywhere potentially that you have access to your dashboard, and you can tell that everything's running as it should do. And also appliances within the homes like kettles, toasters, plug-in heaters, there are button and switch sensors which will tell you when those devices are being used. So for example, if you expect someone to be up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the first thing they do is switch the kettle on, that sensor could send back to a dashboard acknowledgement that they've actually done that. If you could move on to the next one for me, Diane. Thank you.
I think that was all we had, Paul.
Okay.
Okay.
So moving on from that, there are other uses of these slides as well. So Norfolk County Council they're at quite an advanced stage with LoRaWAN. So they basically have implemented road sensors where sensors are embedded into the tarmac. During the winter, if a temperatures drop below a certain degree, they know that they need to send out gritters. So basically, they're fortunate in a way. They've got a flat county, so roads tend to be a consistent temperature because they're not hidden behind hills or down in valleys. And they believe that each time the understanding is each time they send out gritters, they're able to pinpoint exactly where those gritters are needed and save up to £8,000 each time the gritters are sent out onto the roads. Coming onto the dashboards, which I mentioned earlier on, there obviously has to be somewhere that these sensors fire the data. They fire it back to the gateway. The gateway, there are two different ways the gateway can communicate with computer systems. The main one is via Ethernet. So for example, we are getting funding from Welsh Government for, I think it's just over 60 gateways. Now, those gateways could be set up on school buildings. And the reason you'd probably choose a school is they're under the control of the council. Plus, in those schools, we've recently upgraded the network switches, and you would plug those gateways into the school switches and then into Paris's computer systems. So you would actually be able to feed back into a dashboard within the council exactly what was happening with your sensors. Dashboards, they're proprietary. So, for example, the one I'm familiar with is called Tego.io. It's a public dashboard. That means it's not just limited to the council. The council could issue it dashboards or provide availability to dashboards to the public in Paris, and they could buy sensors and they could independently monitor those sensors for themselves. To give you an idea of the cost, when we're doing trials, you can get up to 5 sensors on a dashboard for free. Then they tend to be American companies that have sort of innovated in this way. $49 would buy you 100 sensors, or could register 100 sensors and the output of those 100 sensors, and then up to $200, which would get you up to 1,000 dashboards and 1,000 users across the county. There's also mappers. Basically, the mappers, you can go online and check to see where all of the gateways are within a county, or in fact across the world. I actually went onto one this morning, TTN, and I could see that the nearest gateway to Llandrindod was a Farming Connect sensor at Cefn, and that appears to be a Welsh Government business gateway for the farming community. And I've noticed that they do have a few of those spread across Wales. It's an exciting opportunity. I'm at the very beginning of understanding its capability, but I hope that this presentation gives you some idea of of its capability. And thank you for listening. And do you have any questions for me?
Okay, thank you for that, Paul. There are a couple of questions for you. First up, Carl Lewis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to ask Paul, have we got any LORAN implemented anywhere in Powys currently? I have a little bit of experience with it with regards to emergency light testing for Watford Council. I'm just wondering, are we doing anything similar to that to save on manpower hours or anything like that, really?
Not at the moment. So we're due to receive from Welsh Government, these 60 plus gateways, plus a variety of different sensors. So probably if you ask me this question in 9 months' time, I'd be able to say yes. So at the moment, no is the short answer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Kelvin, you're next. Kelvin Curry.
Yeah, thanks very much, Matthew. Yeah, thanks for the presentation. And the question relates to the sensors that potentially could be placed in vulnerable people's homes. And I think we've had a system like this before, but it's been a bit more older technology, I think. But the principle is fine. So, the water leak sensors, movement, seatbed sensors, smoke sensors, etc. The only thing that concerns me a little bit is the privacy issues about this. Human rights, and presumably people have to agree to this happening. And the obvious thing that seems to be missing from that list is actually cameras. You could see if someone was operating perfectly okay within their home if you had 1 or 2 cameras which again were motion sensitive. Presumably that's just a step too far. That's just the privacy laws would not allow that, even if the person inside was agreeable to it. So could you say a little bit more about the privacy and why possibly cameras aren't being used, or at least maybe they are, but they're certainly not on your list? Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Privacy. So the system is is secure. So any data that was sent by a sensor wouldn't be available to anybody other than the person using the dashboard and the person who set it up. I appreciate there's a point with, and it has occurred to me, that there's a point with privacy. But yeah, it's a secure system. In terms of CCTV, it does not work as CCTV. That's one of the first things I actually read up on. So LoRaWAN is not powerful enough to actually work as a CCTV system. It's powered by batteries, which makes it very portable, and it's low power. So even though it has a long range, very low power, and the batteries in them, they're only small, but they last up to 5 years. So it's a secure system. It's only going to be reporting back to people with an interest, and it isn't compatible with CCTV.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kelvin. Jeremy Pugh, please.
Hi, thank you for your presentations this morning. I've got to say, I found them extremely interesting. My question is, my Powys and the LoRaWAN system that we're looking at here, are they compatible to work with the likes of Alexa? Because a lot of the elderly people, like myself, wouldn't have the capabilities with a lot of computer stuff. And Alexa can take all that out of the way, and the voice control is so much easier for them to use.
Okay, so from the research I've carried out so far, it's a very, very simple system, LoRaWAN. It basically is sensors, gateways, and dashboards. And my understanding is that it is not currently compatible with Alexa.
The problem with that system then is that someone then has to go to see the person then to check, whereas with the Alexa type system that's linked in, when I looked into providing a system with BT, Alexa was quite easy to notify the person because Alexas can be linked via the internet. I'm just saying, it looks a really interesting system and great system. It's just a shame that it didn't link up with all the systems together, and we end up with a piecemeal system rather than overall. And that's not a criticism, that's just an observation.
If I can come in there, Councillor Pugh, we are doing some investigation work with BT. They're going to work with us on one of the projects in one of the areas to try and see what we can actually do to link in some small voice elements as well. LoRaWAN isn't designed for the communication device in terms of voice or video, but actually BT have successfully implemented that in some areas. So we're looking at what we can actually add to that. I think the benefit of LoRaWAN is actually that this can be deployed in places where traditionally, if you didn't have broadband connection, we couldn't put technology-enabled care in there. So this broadens our scope across many rural areas, like the extremely rural areas as well, as long as we can get that line of sight 5 miles, and we can put the gateways in many more places. So when we talk about the Elan Valley, we can actually get connections out there where we would definitely not have before. So it's not entirely ruled out. At the moment, it's saying it's not really designed for that, but we are experimenting and doing lots of different work. I think that the opportunity we've got with LoRaWAN at the moment is to bring it in and investigate as much as we can. It's a real concept piece to start with, and to build on what other local authorities have done. And also, I must say, the farming industry that are way ahead in terms of using this kind of technology and monitoring agriculture and all kinds of elements. They're streaks ahead of us, but actually there's a lot that can be learned and a lot we can bring in. So I think next time we come to talk to you, like Paul said, in a year, there'll probably be many different changes. And in terms of integrating Alexa into the GOS system, we have done one trial element and it is capable of doing that. At the moment, what we're trying to do is put in the base platform to make sure all of the transactions are there and capable of doing if you connect. And then we'll bring in the voice telephony, etc. And Alexa will definitely be part of that omni-channel journey that I talked about earlier in the presentation.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy. No further hands up at this stage. It's an ambitious strategy, and it's good to have the presentation at Scrutiny, and there's clearly lots of potential to help change the way that the council works, to make it simpler, one, for people to contact the council, but by using the technology that we saw presented in the last section to actually improve outcomes for people and keep people living at home longer, which is obviously a good thing. Can I just ask how the strategy is being funded? Is that being done through the council's transformation programme? And just what we think the overall cost of implementing this might be?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were funded by Welsh Government and match funded by Transformation Programme in the council for 3 years. We are in year 2 at the moment. We're just about to move into year 3, starting in March. We've successfully met all the objectives under the Welsh Government term, so I'm sure they're going to set us some new objectives. And part of that sharing was actually that all the learning that we took from our digital journey, as we were one of the first local authorities to be funded, was that we share that regularly with all of our counterparts in Wales in terms of health, social care and councils and health boards, which we do. We've been doing lots of live events and lots of sharing across the piece. So that's how we're funded. Obviously, on the back of that, we are tasked to make some savings as well in the organisation, because obviously when you put in technology, you expect some savings in the back end. So we are saving in terms of technology. So where we're putting in, getting these integrated systems that are designed much more for the modern environment, we're being able to switch off a lot of our smaller systems that used to do that work all in smaller component parts that weren't connected. So the GOS system connects us in much better ways, that we're able to switch off some of those small systems that are saving us money. So I think this year we're on track to deliver £200,000 worth of savings.
Okay, that's good news, and it's good to hear the council's attracting external funding for these projects. What was the level of the Welsh Government funding, Diane? Do you know roughly?
Yeah, it's £300,000 a year,
Okay.
so it's just over 900,000 for the 3 years.
Okay, that's helpful. And just one of the questions that wasn't answered earlier on in the presentation for me, I think it was when Kelly was presenting. She talked about the assisted services, but rather than self-service, and I just wondered what the difference in cost to the council was for those. So if I rang up about a missed collection, what would the cost to the council be for that? And if then I reported it online, what would the cost of that be? There's clearly going to be a difference, and I just wondered what that was in terms of monetary value.
Look, across all of our services, it'll probably be the front end of our customer services budget, excluding all of our post and print, post and scanning, which I don't have the figures today, but I can definitely get that figure back to you.
Yeah, it just puts it in a very real context. So it might be good to see some examples of that in future if you could for us. Great. Okay, well that's it in terms of members wanting to ask questions there. And so thanks to you, Kelly and Paul, for joining us. That was really useful, and we'll of course follow this as it develops, and I'm sure you'll come back to us with some of the broader work that you talked about as well. So thank you for that. Colleagues, we'll move on then to item 5 on the agenda. It's the Scrutiny Work Programme. It's detailed there for you. We're building in now progress reporting on the efficiency savings following an item that Councillor Amanda Jenner raised at Coordinating Committee, and felt it was a good idea to embed that across all scrutiny committees. So you'll see that in the work programme. Also scheduling freedom leisure returning to us, but we're also acutely aware that we need to see, and I have raised this with the head of service, the housing redesign that was promised to come to scrutiny. That is delayed. We understand why, but it is still very much in our mind's eye, and we will wait for it. Okay. Wyn, anything to add on the work programme?
Sorry, Chair, nothing to add to that at all. I put my camera on, but not my mic.
No problem at all. Jeremy, I think you want to comment?
Yeah, it's the house one. We seem to have stalled. You know, I haven't got the answers I require to be able to do what I've said, you know, and we need to understand how the contract was set up in the first place. We need to look through the contract. I believe to understand the contract, we would need someone from external from the council to come in and look at the contract with us, because it will be a complicated affair. And if we don't learn from mistakes in the past, we'll make the same mistakes in the future. And this one's proved a very costly mistake, with the contract being so poorly written, poorly understood. And when it came back to the council, after it had been drawn up by the firm in Bristol, obviously it was not looked at in a proper manner. And all of these things need to be looked at so we understand and don't do it again.
Okay, yeah, okay, Jeremy, we've got a working group established for that, which Councillor Selby leads on. I think that David Selby will have heard you, and Wyn will make a note of it, and we can pick it up as an action about how we obtain that information for you and for the working group. All right.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Gareth Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to check with Wyn what's happened in relation to county farms coming before us. It's something that was on the agenda and seems to have fallen off. Thank you.
Indeed.
It's still on the backlist, Gareth, and we've got quite a long list of items that we need to be looking at. But of course, at the moment, we're in business critical mode, so we're only looking at things which are relevant to the current operation rather than bringing new work forward, unfortunately. So it's one of those things that's stuck in the list.
Yeah, Wyn.
Yeah, I think we are going to need at some point a conversation at coordinating committee, because we are, particularly this committee, I think, building up a real backlog of items that we've just not been able to look at because of the business critical mode. And whilst it's completely understandable that the council focuses on what it needs to do in the immediate pandemic, all these issues are going to be stacked up waiting for us, and we won't have capacity to deal with them in future if we don't start at least to look at some of the more simple ones now. So Wyn, can we maybe pitch that over to coordinating committee?
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Okay, folks, that is it for today's session. We do have a confidential members briefing scheduled for 11:30, so there's time for a quick comfort break. That's on a separate link, isn't it, Wyn?
It is, Chair, and that one's on Teams rather than Zoom.
Okay, folks, so over on Teams for the next one. Kelvin, sorry, I missed you.
Yeah, it's just a very quick one, actually. It's to thank Wyn ever so much, because as a result of our meeting, I think the week before last, I suggested that you couldn't actually read which councillors were on the meeting. Now with these thumbnail pictures, you can see the first name, at least, of the councillors, and we've got a mugshot as well. It's a great improvement, so thank you very much for the work you're putting into this to make sure it works as well as possible, Wyn. Great.
That's right, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's like celebrity squares here. Okay, folks, that's it. Thank you very much. See you soon. Take care.
Can I have a second with you, Wyn, please?